Hey guys, Virgin Vinyl with you again today. Today I've got Jeff Beck, Wired. Now this is a reissue, obviously, it's brand new, but I'm a big fan of Jeff Beck and especially this album. So when I saw it in the shop, I had to pick it up. Jeff Beck is a really interesting figure, was a really interesting figure. Sadly, he's passed away, but he kind of is like primarily like Jeff. The whole thing with Jeff Beck is that he was like a true performer, I guess, because he wasn't really a composer. He did write some songs here and there, but mostly Jeff's thing was about interpreting music with his voice, with his vision, and it was a truly unique vision, truly unique voice that he had on the guitar. And it's like you can think of him as like a like a Frank Sinatra type or something like that. Some like those singers who they're not. Their great artistry comes from the way that they interpret other people's music and how they bring a unique voice to that art. And that was Jeff Beck's thing for the most part. Of course, he came to prominence in the Yardbirds originally in the 60s, and then he sort of went off and did the Jeff Beck group, the first Jeff Beck group, which had Rod Stewart on vocals and Ainsley Dunbar on drums, Ronnie Wood on bass, and they did they did those albums Truth and Beckola, which are both great, and I love those as well. Then he went and did he do the Bogart Appice thing before or after? I can't remember, but at some point he hooked up with them, with the rhythm section from Vanilla Fudge, and then I don't know if it was before or after. I'm not too great with the Jeff Beck timelines, but he reassembled another version of the Jeff Beck group, and they did Rough and Ready and Jeff Beck group, those albums, which are also really cool, which was sort of like the beginning, like on Truth and Beckola, it's much more rock and roll. All right, you get a lot more of that sort of that 60s, that late 60s rock and roll. And when you get to those like albums Rough and Ready and Jeff Beck group, they're much more bringing in the soul and rhythm and blues and jazz, and those are great albums as well. Eventually that group fell apart and Jeff went off and started doing his own solo albums, and that's when we got Blow by Blow, which is a fantastic album as well. And that's really the beginning of where Jeff sort of goes down the instrumental jazz rock route, and he did it so well. I think from memory that's his best-selling album. Anyway, a few years later in 1976, he gives us this bad boy right here, Wired, which is my personal favorite Jeff Beck album. I absolutely love this album. This thing smokes. You got an incredible band on here. Mainly, like, before he did this album, he was touring, opening up for Mahavishnu Orchestra, the second incarnation of that band. So I guess that's probably where he might have met Narada Michael Walden, maybe before that. But he hooked up with him and got him on drums for this album. And anything that Narada Michael Walden plays on is always going to be killer. He's an amazing drummer, a great composer in his own right, great producer in his own right. And then he also brought in Jan Hammer from the first Mahavishnu band to play keyboards and synths on some of this stuff. You've got he's got Wilbur Bascom on bass. He's got sometimes Richard Bailey on drums, Max Middleton on Fender Rhodes, and who else? Anybody else I'm missing? No, I think that's about it. Anyway, this album absolutely cooks. It cooks. It's so like it's so groovy and funky, and like the pocket is so deep on this thing. Like when you listen to that opening track, Lead Boots, man, that's a smoking track. Smoking, absolutely kick-ass. And you know that like for me, Jeff is at his best when he has like a killer rhythm section behind him like that. His voice deserved to be lifted up that way, and with this band, it's unmatched. I think like this is, you know, one of the truly great top tier, top echelon jazz rock fusion albums, and I absolutely love this album. I'm pretty late to the Jeff Beck thing, to be honest. I didn't grow up listening to Jeff Beck. I got into Jeff Beck only a few years back, but and I'm not really sure, except for Beckola. I had Beckola, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. I got that ages and ages ago, and I really liked that album. I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't go down that rabbit hole until much later, but when I did it, I discovered this wonderful album and the albums surrounding it and that era. You know, I fell in love with his style, his totally unique, individualistic approach to guitar, and it's like no other. That's the thing I love. I love when you discover musicians who truly have their own voice, and they're sort of instantly recognizable. And Jeff's one of those guys. I mean, all my favorite guitarists are like that. They sort of have this instant, and favorite musicians in general, like they have their own sound, and that's what makes them special, because they're not just a technician. You know, they haven't just learned all the scales and you learn all the chords and you learned all the theory, and playing what they think should be there. It's like the instrument's like an extension of their personality. It's an extension of their soul. However you want to look at that, whether you believe in such things or not, it's an extension of that person's perception of the world and perception of their life and their artistic statement about how they see things and how they feel, and how the music makes them feel, and the journey that the music takes them on. And Jeff is like the personification of that, you know, because that's pretty much all he does, you know. And yet he's because of that, the strength of that with him, even though he's not known as this prolific composer or writer, but he has such a strong statement coming through his expression that it has lifted him, rightly so, to legendary status. Anyway, guys, Jeff Beck, he's the man. Hit that subscribe button and tell me what you think of Jeff Beck. See you guys. See you tomorrow.